Have you ever pondered about the rules that govern conduct during armed conflicts? The importance of these rules, known as International Humanitarian Law or IHL, is immense. Today, we delve into the origins, principles, and enforcement of IHL, a topic that deserves our attention and understanding. Our journey begins in the mid-19th century with the inception of IHL. This body of law, also referred to as the Law of Armed Conflict or the Law of War, was born out of a necessity to balance military operations with the principles of humanity and public conscience. It applies to all parties involved in armed conflict, from states and armed groups to individuals, seeking to protect civilians and non-combatants. The foundation of IHL rests on three key principles: distinction, proportionality, and humanity. The principle of distinction calls for a clear differentiation between combatants and non-combatants, between military objectives and civilian objects. Its goal is to shield civilians and civilian infrastructure from the ravages of war unless they are being used for military purposes. Next comes the principle of proportionality. This principle discourages attacks that may result in harm to civilians or civilian objects that outweigh the anticipated military advantage. It encourages parties to ensure that collateral damage does not excessively outweigh the military objective. The principle of humanity, the heart of IHL, requires all parties to a conflict to uphold compassion and respect for the inherent dignity of all individuals. This includes the humane treatment of prisoners of war, detainees, and civilians, regardless of their affiliations. These principles were codified in the 4 Geneva Conventions of 1949 and their additional protocols of 1977. These legal instruments provide a structure for the protection of victims of armed conflict and outline the rights and obligations of the warring parties. Building on the foundations of the Geneva Conventions, the additional protocols address issues such as the protection of civilians, the conduct of hostilities, and the use of certain weapons. They uphold the prohibition of attacks directed against civilians and civilian objects, as well as methods of warfare causing unnecessary suffering or injury. Apart from these conventions and protocols, customary international law also shapes IHL. Consisting of established practices and norms, customary international law holds binding legal status, even in the absence of specific treaty obligations. The enforcement of IHL is paramount, with states bearing the primary responsibility to ensure compliance and accountability during armed conflict. International humanitarian organizations like the International Committee of the Red Cross play a significant role in promoting IHL awareness and providing humanitarian assistance. In summary, international humanitarian law, with its principles of distinction, proportionality, and humanity, serves to mitigate the effects of armed conflict. Codified in the Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols, and supplemented by customary international law, IHL's enforcement is crucial to protect civilians and non-combatants during times of war. It's a testament to our collective aspiration for a more humane world, even amidst the chaos of conflict.
अगर आप ऐसी ही मालूमाती वीडियोस देखना चाहते हैं तो हमारे चैनल को लाइक और सब्सक्राइब जरूर करें। खुदा हाफिज, अपना ख्याल रखें।